Good evening. This is Dehru Mitchell, Out of the Mud from Out of the Mud Productions Incorporated, connected and protected. This evening, I'm going to do a whole lot of reflecting on things that I have long considered, long thought about, those influences that caused me to think of these things, and then the way I have, pondered the world up until the world of the society to the extent that I've been in it up to the time when I decided certain aspects of it just did not quite make sense to me as to how they became the way they were and why they became the way they were and why in a sense I find that me as a person, and then I'm going to include melanated people as people of the group that I consider myself a part of, because I was not quite able to include myself in the whole picture as it's being called these days. I find that we have um, been a separated group to no large degree, but to the extent that we've been made to be everything other than ourselves. And then we were given forms to become um, a person based on outside knowledge being told to us as to who we are, what we are, the things that would make us become what we should be, and never to give any consideration to your own directives as to who you are and what you can be, as long as it, you know, didn't disagree with anything that you were being led into or directed into or indoctrinated into, so on and so forth. I started thinking about the dominant paradigms that are, group orientated. I started thinking about the people that I turn to listen to get some understanding of the various ways of thinking and the various modes that societies are structured under, over, within, so on and so forth. Um, and, I made a choice myself that after receiving somewhat of an education going through school half heartedly, being that I was not really settled into a family life that, I consider myself a real part of. Even to today, I still, I guess, have a certain amount of feeling left out because I'm not that close with my family as far as my siblings, brothers and sisters. So, I kind of went through all of that. Um, I went through various areas of exploring from high school up until I guess I would say my early 30s, going through different phases of okay, since I'm not going to do that, I can do this and see how what this turns out to be. This and see how what this turns out to be. This and see how what this turns out to be. So that when I, endeavored to do things based on what appeared to be somewhat a way in society on the level I was on, and due to my current knowledge or level of thinking, or you know, what seemed to be prevalent in my environment, street life, so on and so forth. Um, I wasn't looking to any guidance or acceptance of a person I chose to be an authority figure, or um, someone that I could accept being my influence to any area of direction that I, could consider what they say making a career out of, or you know, embellishing half to three-fourths of my life in just to earn a living and so on and so forth. I hadn't thought about raising no family, having a house and wife and kids and stuff like that. That wasn't, on my mind at that time. Matter of fact, uh, we had a various, I had a various, very frivolous way of thinking because, it was in that 73 year, year of 73 that I graduated from high school. I was over in Detroit. I had, an older brother who was into various things, but he, upon reflecting, was very, wayward in his lifestyle and so on and so forth. So I drifted through quite a bit on just, what I guess I considered it having fun, indulging myself with women in my life and being in their lives to the extent that I considered, I was giving as much as was receiving in our interactions or in the time that we spent together. Children came out of some of those situations, and I wasn't a part very much in their lives, according to, I don't know, I guess the times, the social environment, and the social mentality. It was, I guess, times of feminist movements, of the contradictions of the man being the head of the household amongst the women who, you know, were not really in the position that I find now that they should have had some knowledge of, which they did, because we didn't have very much knowledge of ourselves. We did know, I guess men did know at the time to be, responsible, uh, protectors, providers, so on and so forth. But, you know, that wasn't a that wasn't a part of my experiencing. So then I came to, you know, like I said, the dominant restructuring that I see taking place today. the in the lives of melanated people in America. The nations coming online, unifying the groups, the thinking, the life changing processes that elevate these people, how they are purposed for positive self improvement and the ability to be a directive force for ascension into the accomplishment of becoming the next greatest, and for lack of a better word, civilization that will be worldwide, not one of dominance, but one of acceptance as to the culmination of the melanated people that will have reached when understanding that even though we have had to reach a clear cut understanding that we were never to be able to think positively of ourselves, we nevertheless have. As a result of this overstep, we have followed our chosen leaders whose whose failures in succession led to eventual success in showing the way as to how to remove uncertainty of our ability to assess, utilize, and bring about whatever we could think of.
So, Mr. Mitchell, when you've been on here and you've given a lot of esoteric and historic and all kinds of information, knowledge, and things that people appreciate. But what's the get down to the root of it? What is it that you're really saying or trying to say or want people to get out of what you are passing along?
That in what I see as a quest to return ourselves to our um, positions on this planet as a people who have the ability to do anything that we desire to do, which I, in my estimation, would be to have a life of peacefulness, happiness, contentedness within ourselves that you know defies. I guess that defies any internal conflict that defies any internal conflicts and doesn't take in any outer conflicts. And I see us unifying
What does
ourselves.
that mean? What does that mean?
To
Taking
me,
into account the inner conflicts, but not the outer conflicts.
not taking on any inner conflicts, meaning that we have gotten rid of ins- that we have gotten rid of all of the aspects that would have us divided and against each other, knowing that all of those things were perpetrated on us to give us misdirection, non unity, the inability to progress together in a lifestyle that gives everyone the hope of you know
So, if
peace
I'm
in life.
understanding what you're saying, you're talking about Black Americans, right?
Um, yes,
And
Black Americans and melanated people around the world.
okay, so right, but more specifically, if I'm listening, if I'm taking what you're saying, you're talking about Black folks in America that and you're talking about it under the guise of slavery and being traded.
Not so much all of that, as far as never knowing that we as a people in a unified manner could never have gone through that. And I see that as simply, you know, having been forced on us, and as far as slavery is concerned, now I don't understand it as what I thought slavery was.
Okay, I
You know.
I can comprehend that. So, being that with a collective mind, something like that can't happen. When you're unified, you others can't come in and destroy you and separate you from yourself. And being that globally, when you're looking at a collective, Europeans or Caucasians or those are that are considered white are not even close to the percentage of those of us that are considered black or melanated. Not talking about Indians, not talking about dark Asians, not talking about it. I'm just talking about people that are descendants of Africa or strong descendants from Africa, such as from the Caribbeans, the North and South Americas, and African continent. And you're talking about a couple billion people within that whole
Well,
collective.
well,
And how could this small minority, which has put themselves in position of a majority, conquer, separate, divide, and demolish the mindset and the collective thought of melanated people?
to my knowledge, to my understanding, it was done with the diabolical means of force, fear, and death.
But that's still a huge task. So, you
It
know,
was never our nature to be um,
but it's human nature to defend, correct? To preserve life,
to the extent that we felt threatened. Yes,
right? So,
but when we accepted what seemed to be a semblance of us, we didn't have any idea of the mannerisms or their character or their denatured selves. You know,
okay.
we
So it was like inviting in a stranger that you think resembles you, and the only difference is they have on a different set of clothes.
different set of clothes.
But when
No, no, no. Well, that's the only difference we could see.
right,
To
that's
the
what
extent that we did not care to take a close look at what we were actually dealing with.
so, and I get it. So I'm creating a conversation. I'm just trying to have this
Mm.
conversation because uh, the history that the history that I come to understand and see when you look at the Napoleon, King Leopold,
Okay. Yeah.
and how he devastated over 20 million, if not close to 100 million Africans in their demise in order to conquer the continent and to
Mhm.
divide it amongst the European nations. And then looking at how all of that stuff transpired, and then you have the Roman Empire and the church, the Catholic Church, and such going through and devastating humanity or the human nature of a person by saying they're not human, and people don't see it. They just say, "Oh, I'm gonna just let you take my life. I'm gonna just let you take my children. I'm gonna just let you take my women." And that sixth sense or that nature of understanding seems like it would be like, no, something ain't right with you. You know, being from an environment like here, like Flint,
Well, I
we always
still
have this sense of, standoffishness because, you kind of feel the spirit of a person. Like, You cool, but something ain't right. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I have to say that it was a process. It was a continuous process, and this process didn't, from the time of King Leopold, it's hundreds of years, and their I still have to say their diabolical mentality was set. It didn't change. Just as our nature toward each other was mastermindedly changed, you know, and we're just now, I guess, I truly have a strong, you know, contention to send my energy in that direction, that we're coming back to our natural selves in the love that we have for each other. And it's beyond, it's taking us beyond those differences that were constructed. So, okay, I still want if since you went there,
Okay.
I want to say that these things came about in such a manner that, as I understand it, they took what we were and decided that they wanted to be that, and we weren't that. And this happened.
But
You can go back to the ages of Egypt, Kemet, whatever.
right.
Back in those days, and even before that, I have to say that my understanding, and I don't think it's mine only, is that the whole planet at one time was only melanated. I don't care what geographical location you were in, because at one time our landmass was one landmass.
Right.
This can be seen, so that all people,
Pangea.
okay, Angia, you know, I I'm just now getting up on those terms,
Understood. Understood. What's happening,
and
counsel?
it's such a vast array of knowledge that people don't get because they're not taught it. It's this is learning that you have to get on your own.
Right. Understood. So this is my viewpoint of it. So everything that we know, period, is a lie upon a lie upon a lie upon a lie upon a lie in order to create cognitive dissonance that would never change. And if you do change it, the lie is so deep that you'll never understand what the truth is. And so much depth under the truth that you don't want to go into it to find out what the true truth is. So that's my viewpoint of it.
Now that part I get, I get. That was the confusion. That
And let me say why I say that. So this is my belief, my personal belief, that when you look at, when I look at like the Trail of Tears, and I look at what the devastation was that happened here in North America, I my remembrance of my greats and what the conversations I heard them have and say to me, it was never African ancestry. It was always Native ancestry, or
okay.
what is considered Native, or,
Mhm.
and and so whether it be Cherokee or Blackfoot or whatever, because my folks are from Mississippi, Louisiana,
Okay.
Alabama,
Okay.
and such,
Okay.
and Florida. So those, you're talking about Seminoles and Blackfoot and
Right.
Cherokee
Right. Right.
and
Right.
other
Right. Right.
nations,
Right. Right.
and
Right.
founding
Right.
nations of this nation.
Right.
And within that, I never heard or had any understanding of me being African,
Right.
just American. And so, in order to,
But before I'm saying, okay, when you come to saying American, we didn't call ourselves American.
but based on definition, if you go back, in order for folks to be able to claim something, they have to get other people not to claim it. So, if I want your sweater, I got you. Got to get you to disclaim the sweater. So we've gone through several name changes in this
Mhm.
country,
Mhm. Mhm.
from
Right.
Negro
Right.
to
Right.
color to so on and such,
All of those
and
things. Yes.
those things are to separate us from our land.
Right.
because when you say that you're African American, that means that you're associated with another landmass,
Yes.
and you're not associated with the landmass in which your bloodline has started.
And that was the terminology that was inserted in what 85 with Jesse Jackson.
That was one of the last ones. Yeah,
Okay, so that only goes to say that, as you said, those things were changed according to time, and then there were generational changes that caused that what you say cognitive dissonance.
cognitive dissonance.
So we get to all of that, but first we have to get to the fact that if I mean no, I ain't gonna say first we have to get there because that goes back to those who want to go that far back in history. So just to bring it about to current, say currently, to the last 400 years,
Okay,
okay? Because if I mean, that's to say within the last 400 years, they they never broke their desire. They never broke their structure in setting up the way in which they would conquer. And they devised a means to do so, to my understanding, based on fear and destruction. And then the gathering of all the spoils to themselves and claiming it was theirs all the time because you were never there. You were never a people. And then when we discovered you as uh, upright beings, you weren't considered human or you weren't considered intelligent enough to be anything other than a brute labor and a breeding stock, which was the
now you're
first
saying
which was the first thing they put
us to them or them to us?
on us to them,
Okay,
which was well, I mean, you do understand that they came across the waters and claimed to have discovered this country, and there was no one here but a few red men.
right. I get it, get it, get it.
So when we came to understand, you know, we were educated in a whole different manner to give us a total different knowledge and understanding. We weren't told we were here, always here, and we had civilization to the extent that we were satisfied with it. Government, housing, clothing, the land at our disposal, and our ability to produce from that land a livelihood for ourselves. We had trading.
Right,
We had trade.
in North America, the founding nations had already established that. That's what the Constitution was scripted off of,
Right, right, right,
the founding native nations. So,
right.
but for me, it's just very ingenious to how uh, Caucasians or whites have infiltrated
But this
with
is
a small amount or population and taken and commanded themselves to be the leaders of a large population, and then create a narrative to where we follow after a system in which we can't break. And when you try to break it, you think of apartheid in South Africa. When they kicked all them folks out the first time, they had to go back and say, "Hey, we need you back because we can't do anything or get anything that economically without you. So can you kind of help us out?" Now we're going through the second phase where there are a larger amount of uh, economic significant countries doing this thing called the BRICS. And to me, that's sort of a kick away from colonization or colonialism or the empire in which we know. And it's going to be interesting to see how it goes because with the way that the, the, the
is that in consideration with Ibrahim Toure and the Burkina Faso and the unity that's coming about within that group and the divesting themselves from France and the European countries, and the fact that they are producing for themselves everything that they need, so they don't need that, and they've paid off. They paid off their debts to them. So they now have they now have no real ability other than showing that this can be done. They're not only militarized enough to withstand an onslaught, they're constantly fighting, and they have a constant group coming in to enlarge their militia with fervent joy in it
and,
because they're taking care of themselves.
and that
They're industrializing, they're using their own resources to produce these things
but
for themselves.
it's still under a certain system. It's still
Hmm?
under a certain system. It's
I
still under
don't see that.
the only
I, I
change
don't see.
is the means of paying into the system. So
Wait a
the
minute.
currency that's
I'm
used,
seeing. I'm hearing what you're saying, and I beg to differ to the extent, from my understanding, that they totally divested. They've totally separated themselves from any and all of that, according to the, I guess, unity they have with Russia, buying from them and only allowing them a certain amount of inclusion into what stabilizes both of them.
so as long as we use oil, crude of any sort, it's still under that system. It's still under it, we're under that system.
Based on, you mean based on the
Based on the way that we function and how it gets us the energy and efforts that we need in order to move day to day.
okay,
So
that's called the oil economy.
that's true.
No, fossil fuel, fossil
Yeah, it's
fossil
fossil
fuel.
fuels. Yes.
Okay, now if you take and go back to the fact that they're basing their economy on the gold they produce in their country, what is that? Because they have the ability to buy oil within the continent. They don't need oil from outside the continent.
Okay.
And then in utilizing the oil from the continent itself, they're also helping to restructure other countries in that on that continent that are being brought up and giving a certain amount of economical base so that they can raise themselves up in the field of bringing their people into a quality of life.
Understood. But oil is still a low vibration of use of the harmoniousness of the planet. So until
You say of low vibration.
it's of a low vibration, you are friction that it creates and the things that it
Oh,
draws
okay,
and the
okay,
damage
okay,
that it
okay,
does
okay.
into the place that we live.
Yeah, that's why I was wondering
And
what
when
I
we
guess.
have technology to where we truly have technology to use energy that already exists, but what we consider free energy to get things to move,
This is
levitate, and
okay.
to function,
I agree. This is
then
why I
this
was
system,
totally I mean I was totally you know discombobulated when I heard of Maxwell Chikumbutsu, who had the use of technology running on radio frequencies.
right,
And this and then you know for him to disappear into oblivion,
right.
seemingly,
And these
you
are the
know.
science. These are the sciences that some say the Sumerians and the Egyptians
Mhm.
and the Tartarians had as such in order to move our
C-
communities forward. But then
Civilizations,
it was
yeah.
destroyed. So when you have this and fossil fuel is that's even a misnomer because there's no fossil in the fuel. This stuff doesn't come because of that, based on my understanding and the things that I've read. So it's it's a low vibration in order to keep people in a system, to have an elitism, to have an elite
I
construct.
concur with that. And I still say that that system coming, that elitist system is coming down. Is being relegated to be on its own. take yours, take whatever you got. This go
So that means that we have to take away everything. Pharmaceutical industry, everything that we use is based on crude oil or petroleum product, byproduct. E-
according to.
Everything we use, from the clothes you have on to the headphones on your head, to the shoes on your feet, to the jeans,
But
the
then what?
petroleum industry has a touch in it. From the medications that we take, petroleum is a part of it.
Fine,
And being, so
fine,
my thing is, how
fine.
do we de uh,
What's holistic
detach
medicine?
from that stuff?
What is holistic medicine?
But even in holistic medicine, is we have the plastics that we have, the microplastics that we have infused themselves so much into our ecosystem that even being holistic, you
Can they
still
be
ingest poison.
diffused back out by
Plastic doesn't
using? Huh?
plastic doesn't break down.
It doesn't break down.
Everything about plastic is toxic.
Hmm. So what do you what? So that means that this is going to continue to
I
be in our systems. But then, like everything else on this planet, it was already there to one degree or another. In us as melanated people, natural to the earth, because nothing else. I mean, plastic came out of the earth too,
Right.
and to the degree that we can acclimate ourselves to anything on and in the planet, which is also in us, we find that our natural bodies, with its cellular structures and its ability to circulate everything within it to the degree that it maintains itself and also to a degree regenerate. I've listened to some great people speak on these things. Yak, what's his name? Dr. Yaki.
Um,
Uh,
um, I know who you're speaking of.
yeah, he came after Dr. Sebi, and I was just listening to him earlier today, and his
Dr. Yaki Awaken.
yeah, yeah, his masterful speaking on the attributes of the human body, and from where he at 21 had a heart attack, and the state of his mentality and the way that he is, he's a multimillionaire now
Right, right. And
in
I, I,
business,
I get what you're
and
saying,
all of this,
but I'm
like
saying
he
the
actually,
macro. So micro is portions
the
of this,
macro I feel is the
portions of
coming of us people into a unified nation
but we've
of
already allowed those that are the minority to poison the majority of the planet. So it's almost like GI Joe, where when
well,
Cobra Commander, when they can't get their way, they just blow everything up. So if we have to lose or give
I
this power
I
back,
feel you. I
then
feel you.
when you get it back, you're not going to be able to do nothing with it. It's just going to be done. It's going to take you 2,000 years or the 25,000
Well,
years of the
well,
cycle in
I
order
don't know.
to get it right.
I don't know myself how much to give credit to certain things anymore. But I do know if I speak mine personally, me, you understand? And and I take it on fact of my feeling what I feel, knowing what I know, doing what I do, that you shall know the truth. Getting back to what you stated kind of a little bit earlier, you shall know that truth, and that truth shall make you
Set you
free,
free.
free enough to discover other truths, free enough to walk in that truth,
But that's
free
spiritual
enough to
truth.
that's spiritual. But what were we before we became flesh?
We are spirit
Before we
manifested into flesh.
okay. So I mean, that's still a part of our ability to cleanse
But we're here
ourselves.
now.
But
So
we ascend and descend on a constant basis.
right. But during the time in which we've had ownership of this fleshly body,
Mhm.
We've shortened the lifespan of these bodies by about 700 years, based on if you look at biblical or religious texts.
But then last will be first, first will be last.
So I'm saying if that's the
Why
case, so
we're on our way back.
going off of
We're
that,
on our way back.
no, no, no. But to me, I look at it like this, like Jacob and Esau. So I, because I'm
I read a
look,
few contradictions in that. Jacob,
there's a
Jacob and Esau.
bunch of contradictions throughout any scripture. People just have that's
No, I mean
another thing
I
of
said in that
cognitive
story.
dissonance.
In
People
that
force
story.
themselves to believe or to look at a certain thing, and then sometimes, and then we may not even read the text according to how it's supposed to be read because we're in a different time frame, a different age of understanding, and then the way that the original verbiage, the Hebrew or Aramaic, uh, was to be understood is not how we understand because we're so arrogant in the way that we think our information, knowledge, and our truth is. So
But when one transcends
it,
back into the spiritual, and all of that knowledge is neither explained in words or in vestiges of someone else's doctrine. You get that pure knowledge from source as to what you are from source. And it gives to you a fullness of knowledge as to where you will never lose sight on the fact that even as many ways as they try to swindle the truth, that one inkling that's going to spark that inner spiritual self that knows that whole truth, because you're gonna return to where you're going to return to where you came from,
and I get
and
that.
you do that every time you choose to, because it said that when you worship, you must worship in spirit
And
and in
true,
truth.
right?
So then, when you reach that point of spiritual and that truth is there, you are in it. You don't bring it with you. You are in that truth that is there from the source
So this is
of
the
it being what it
magnificence
is.
of a higher being, of a God, of a creator, of source, is that each individual atom of a person or makeup of a person
Contains.
have their own relationship with the creator. Now there have been things that have been put in front of us in order to have a certain highway of understanding to get to a point, but there's so many other, and I believe that's for collective thought, so people can come together and have. So this is my belief. I believe collective thought works so well for Black folks because we were under such hardship when it came to slavery. So our ignorance was not of ours; it was what was given to us by those that put us in a space of indignity and inhumanity, and made it unlawful for us to have a understanding because they understood collective thought. And so
I still
we
have one thing to
that's why
say beyond
that's why
collective thought.
Christianity for us, and I'm gonna stop talking. That's why Christianity for us works so well in so many senses. Even though if you look at the long term of this, like did it really work? But yes, it did because the collective thought of it made sure that we didn't disassociate ourselves from each other, and we did whatever we needed to do in order to continue to fight, regardless of how suppressed the stories were, regardless of how much ignorance was put and placed on us, and regardless of how meritorious manumission or any type of things that were thrown at us to separate us was thrown at us. Now, what, in my opinion, changed was that spirituality or the esoteric or the religious part of it was destroyed during the 60s, 70s, and the 80s. They figured something out. I believe certain forms of spirituality were forced and consistent towards the spirituality that we understood, and it broke it. It shattered certain things. So we fight not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, rulers, high places,
Spiritual wisdom.
spiritual wickedness. So I'm of the opinion that there are spiritual think tanks that are 24/7, that are always praying against and for what they want, but against what it is that would create a collective thought to usurp power.
And I concur with that, and it is said that that has been the line of dissension from the time of Nimrod. Now you have to come into understanding of when Nimrod come into the picture, and it has never changed since then. It has always been that dominant mindset of that force that we are yet contending. I think, I'm going to spill the beans on it. One thing I have never seen anyone do is lose mother love. I don't give a, I don't give a damn how despicable Mama was. And I also understand one aspect that said everyone born that breaks the matrix of the womb is mine, said the Lord. And I also understand that if you want to genderize the Lord, if you want to genderize God, what came first, the chicken or the egg? What came first, the male or the female? How could there be a son of God and not a mother of God?
I figured you were saying it rhetorical, to me, or you asked me to respond to that.
Uh, yeah, well, no, I'm not asking you to respond
Okay,
to it.
so it's rhetorical, so I was
Okay,
staying
but
quiet.
to the same extent, that which, as I said, I'm reflecting on comes down to, you know, they say they found the first woman, you understand, that was the mother of all living. They ain't said they ever found the first father. And to that extent, it was known of, and I guess it was scientifically proven, but I know as a fact, because we are now here, that there were androgynous beings who decided to birth males, because females were always continuously birthing themselves, bringing forth in their image and in their likenesses, until one decided, okay, I'm going to break this. And then then the X chromosomes became the Y chromosomes and so on and so forth. And then the genetics changed and man was produced, not woman was taken out of man. And to that extent, in this land, the restoring of the matriarchy as the system of what's that, hierarchy, bloodline lineages, so on, and so on, the purported um, what is it? I'm not going to say owners of the land, but the purported inheritors of the land that always had the ability to say who had what use of what land according to their bloodline lineages that was always on the land. They came in with a patriarchal system. And as you said, they dominated everything, but that was on pain of death. We didn't, I'll tell you what, to my understanding, we didn't want to be exterminated. So we chose to humble ourselves because they killed off everything that they, felt would continuously give us a sense of self, a sense of determination to resist them. And then once you take children who are malleable in every way and only give them so much knowledge, instruction, and ability to only be what you want them to be in service to you. And even then, we never accepted that because we always had few that would cause us to rise up in rebellion to it, which systematically they wrote out in the Bible in their conferences with their brightest minds and so on and so forth, a way of indoctrinating that into us as wrong. But even yet, our knowledge of ourselves told us no, it wasn't. We were first and we will be last. In between that time, look, uh, we have,
So so
I
so
feel we have accepted the fact that what don't kill you only makes you stronger.
so this is and I challenge the last shall be first and the first shall be last. So if we're first,
Mhm.
then that makes other cultures last.
Mm-mm. No, that makes other cultures in.
How?
How?
You can't be first and last at the same time.
No, that means we'll be always.
I get
We'll
that. I,
always be.
I get an
But
infinite
they
construct.
will not. As just as their population is slowly dwindling because of sterilization and what they what they did to us, they doing to themselves too. But they don't understand that this is natural for us.
So I might look, take
We'll resist. Will not the waters themselves clean themselves up? Will not the land itself be purified? Does not the earth giving back its own ability to uh what you say restructure its own ecosystem, not do so? I've seen I've seen places that were left abandoned, reforged themselves.
well,
You know,
that's what
even with all of the poisons that are coming out of the
yeah, that's
skies,
what
the
the earth
trees.
does.
Okay,
That's what
well
she does.
what?
She
Why
heals. She
wouldn't we?
naturally heals herself.
Why wouldn't we?
But I'm saying under
Being
the construct of the science and the things that were put
that's
that
their that's what they have given us to
right.
understand as only what
So this is
we
what I'm
will
saying.
be.
This is what I'm saying. The, the, the righteous
Mhm.
the righteous path that we have put ourselves on, or that we are saying that we are the chosen ones. Yeah,
Ah,
I'm just listen
that
what I'm saying.
that's those are
I get that, but follow what I'm saying.
read
You don't have to
intention.
agree. Just
Okay,
follow what I'm saying.
okay.
And it's first shall be last. Last. I hear that. I think of that. So if black for the first, then white for the last. And
No.
then that's why they are in leadership now and on top right now. So I'm using it on the surface of the words, not
On the
going
surface
on
of
the
the word,
surface of the words. Um,
not in the spirit of our being.
but then okay, but
See,
then
those
you have to
words,
break
those
down the
even
spirit of
those.
it. What do you mean by the spirit of it? Because we're, we take
Hmm, hmm.
the world currently has systemized, the Roman Catholic Church has systemized and Catholicized the Bible. You got the canonized versions of so many different things.
Theologically,
So the thing is, they run that narrative, and that
theologically,
narrative runs in a certain. You got the what is it?
theologically, their theory would dominate our mentalities to the point where spirituality would not cause us to come back into
But
accurate.
has so
Huh?
far
Wait a minute, hold
to
on,
this point.
hold on, hold on. To the point where spirituality would not bring us back to the accuracy of what we are. who we, how we, and what we shall be, because it has never been that we were not. Now, having, in a sense, in this plane, on this plane, been dumbed down, mind swiped, discombobulated, thoroughly, look, if they could have, they would have been satisfied taking our heads and giving us this AI conceptual thinking and put it inside of a dome where they could have control.
So this is where I'm going with it. Ultimately, that I believe that segregation is a weapon. Integration
Okay,
is a weapon,
okay.
and that weapon has been used in order to put all nations against each other
Well,
in the sense of
that's where I disagree.
high and low.
That's where I disagree because before they decided,
Sure thing, though. So
before
let me
they decided, those who came in to
let me get this
conquer.
point off so
Okay,
I can take.
okay.
So when I'm going more so into like the black nobility and those that we just 13 families and so on and such.
Hmm.
Uh, so when you have a point of power, or what I understand of power and
Hmm.
what I've read of power and the
Okay.
things that what history has shown of power,
Hmm.
you power doesn't give itself away. You have to take it by force. And when you are in a position of power and you can control the narrative, the history, the monetary system, the food, all the logistical traits of anything, then you create dissidence amongst people in order to maintain your power structure. So, say for instance, we have a mutual person we know, and we're all about to become trillionaires. And then the person we know, like, I don't want to be trillionaires. So they tell you one thing and tell me another thing, and cause us to have dissension amongst each other while they go and sign the paperwork and we fight our willies out of what we all should have been together. Just because that person didn't have the same skill sets or the same abilities that we did. So they saw that if it would have went the same way, they were going to time out anyway because they didn't have the same structure of keeping up or maintaining. We were just doing we were together. We were like, hey, let's all do this together. But they told me, like, you're stronger than me. And you're you're more you, you- you're more proficient with words than I am. And me, I'm just here. I'm just a laborer, and you guys are just gonna allow me. We're friends. We're good. We're family. So okay, thanks. And then as soon as they say like, that's not gonna work. So I gotta get the smart one, go against the strong one, and then I'll be the one with power. They'll be asking me to fulfill whatever, and then now
Classic,
they
classic,
reverse that thing. And so what
still
happened?
classic divide and conquer.
But that's what happened with the American history. Because guess what? Who were the people that built the country? It was people of color. It was black folks. It was black. It was those that melanated people. And
To my
what about South
understanding,
Africa? Who were the ones that were in the mines and did all of the work? It was the black folks. So what happened is when things reversed and the freedoms were fought for and taken, then instantly within 10-year spans, it was like, oh, these Negroes or these blacks, they're way too skillful because they're gonna make up for 400 years or for 100 and something years in less than 20 years. So we got to do something to disrupt that. So we
and
have
they've
to,
done that for quite a while.
and the system has. So I'm saying,
But then now it's coming down. They're not going to be able to continue with the structure that they have.
well,
We are knowledgeable
so
of it.
what's going to take its spot?
Ah,
Because
ah.
because
This
Russia
is
and
what
China and any other superpower, they're not going to look at all. There's a liberation of the human spirit.
well,
We're going to.
they're all
They all
waiting on it.
have
They're
nuclear
all
weapons
waiting on
also.
it. They're
They
all
all
waiting
have.
on it though. They're all waiting on it. The same. What? How is it stated? Is the enemy of my enemy my
I'm not about to trust I'm not going to trust a Republican, a China person, or a Russian person because something happens on
to
that,
what? To
because
what?
they
You're not
have
going
the
to trust
same
them to
interest
what?
to do me wrong than anybody else.
What? When their incentive is no longer there.
I'll let you go into.
No, I said why when you their incentive? What? Who? Who do they hold in reverence in America? Who does China and any of those other countries hold in reverence?
Nobody.
Nobody. Really?
You tell me. You said
Oh,
it. I'm listening.
I think, and I
Who,
mean,
who in China and who in Russia do you hold over?
do I hold reverence? I hold those who have kept themselves from attacking this country forthright.
They don't have the means to do it. It's a government system that has the means.
I said
Sheep,
all of those
sheep and
countries,
pond
all
don't
of those
move on
countries.
their own command.
What?
Sheep and pond don't move on their own command.
So take the Asian countries, foreign countries that are not within the European Union or allies with Europeans that would just, you know, come and annihilate this country. And with that ability to do so at a moment's notice, are they are they not doing so because of repercussions or retribution or any of that? Truthfully,
Because of balance of power.
that's the problem. That we have none of.
Not as individuals, not
No,
women
as
outside the
even
system.
as melanated people in this land, we have none of
Right. But also, we've lost a lot of our moral high ground through all of the things that we're doing in this current time and day. We- We've 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 made ourselves to look ridiculous on a world stage because we have not held on to the understanding of what freedom's supposed to look like and what progression is supposed to look like and what a collective thought process is supposed to be. Our churches are dying. Our education in our community is extremely crazy. That our women being are creating environments for themselves to be sexualized. Our men are not doing what they need to do. I'm talking about collectively.
it. Talking about
Now we have a
collectively.
percentage, and those percentages, we're doing some things. But collectively, in the image that
This
is being
is
portrayed, that we're allowing to be portrayed,
oh
that we're not fighting hard enough for, to say, look, y'all not gonna put us out here like that is not going right. Like when we look at, because one thing I do know that we do is that whatever we do in a stylish or a fashionable way, the world
therefore I see when I see you know I see what you're saying. I was coming to because like I said, I see failures in succession who led to eventual successes. Even after Martin Luther King was assassinated, what came to light, he was on the road to vindicate us, having gone through what we had went through, and now we wanted what was owed us. Not that we were asking for it. We were demanding. I'm coming to get that check. Out. That mindset should not be in those people. Malcolm X. And I'm not just going to go with those. I'm going to go all the way back to
this is one thing I actually when
I'm going back.
after they
Mhm.
look into the association with civil rights leaders and the Communist Party and
Look into it.
Marxism and the
Look into it.
Communist Party. Look into it and see who went to and participated in Marxist and communist construct and
Socialist.
and, and socialist construct.
Mhm.
So
To say that America's democracy and republicanism was always the way it was supposed to go, or the imperialism and capitalism of Europe.
just look into it, and then we'll have a
That's what I
conversation.
that, no, no, we can go
We're
there
already
right
at an
now.
hour and five
Well,
minutes. I got another show coming. So
okay. So we can end this, but we're going to end it with this shall be continued. You know, 'cause I love this aspect. And what, are we good to go now?
I'm, I, I'm gonna let you end it. I just,
Okay, well, with that, I'll just say this shall be continued, and we can get into all this, some of those other uh, factors that I feel makes us the reason why the destruction of America has been here for so long. And with that, I'll see you on the next.